Hello and welcome to the Really Big Fucking Podcast, also known as the podcast that wouldn't lob softballs at FB if you ever came on. I am Bino.
I'm Poet.
So today's episode, we're going to go over some new stuff that just came out. The big news is Burnt Horizon is out,
Yay.
and we got a new map, we got a couple new ops, and we got the exact same ranked playlist we've been playing on for the past 3 months.
Yeah.
So lots of exciting stuff there. The Capitao Revert, we've got the newcomer playlist, and then we got a special segment for you at the end where we're going to be going over, or is it going to be at the end? I don't remember. But we've got a segment where we're going to teach you how to watch Pro League and how to learn from it and how to implement that stuff in your own game. So those are the topics for today. So getting right into it, you probably got a little bit of my angst at the interview that Epi did on the Hot Breach podcast. In that intro
I mean, yeah, we're not gonna recap it, so just go watch it.
Yeah, it was
Hot Breach
actually
podcast
it was a
on YouTube.
fine episode of the podcast. Like there were things to learn from it.
It was cool that they got him on. I mean, that'd be huge for us
Yeah.
if we did it.
Yeah, I mean we didn't get them, but
Nah.
I feel like they lobbed some softballs, some very soft softballs at them.
Yeah, it definitely was soft. Soft balls.
So like the main thing that I wanted out of it that didn't end up coming was any questions about ranked and why it's the exact same as it was last season.
Yeah.
And I just wish they would have asked him literally anything other than like how the one thing they did ask was why isn't why aren't bans coming this season instead of next season? And the answer was just a complete non-answer. It was just like, we couldn't do it because of reasons. Like he tried to make an excuse that like they wouldn't, there might be unforeseen bugs or something or issues.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Like, I just wish they would have asked him like what? Or
Any follow-up questions at all?
yeah.
Why are there so many maps still in ranked?
Yeah, and because we know that they took Tower out of the ranked rotation like a day and a half before last season, or not last season, but like 2 seasons ago. They took Tower out of the ranked rotation like right before the season started. So like we know that they can at least edit map pools, and I assume that the pick and ban
That's gotta
is right
be
there.
so easy. I don't know about the pick and ban. So the answer that they gave about the pick and bans was that building it for casual MMR and building it for ranked ELO were 2 different things, and that building it for the ranked ELO system takes time, and they are rigorously testing it to make sure blah blah blah. It was a very non-answer, like you said, very political.
Yeah, well, and
sort of.
that's like the whole matchmaking end of it, which I can sort of understand because I don't know anything about matchmaking. You know, like, obviously, when you set up a custom game lobby, you don't have to do anything with MMR. Like that's all back end stuff. So I can understand that there might be some like SI playlist, because they asked him about whether or not the SI playlist could have been run on ranked MMR, and they came back saying like
No,
not feasible. We'd have to rebuild the whole playlist. But like pick and ban and map pool, that's just sitting right there. And I think Epi even alluded to that fact. Like, yeah, we could totally do it, but we're not going to because maybe it'll screw up some stuff.
yeah.
And then no follow-up was given, which seems really irksome, but whatever.
Yeah, it seemed like that the interviewers from the Hot Breach, which were Prodigio Pete, Get Flanked, and Rogue Nine, if you're unfamiliar with Hot Breach, they are a pretty great podcast, to be honest. Like, I like all of them individually. I like the shows that they do, but they seemed hesitant to really follow up on any of their questions, which I can kind of understand from the standpoint that Epi is a representative of Ubisoft itself, right? He works for the company. He's not going to throw his own company under the bus, and he literally had somebody there like watching over his shoulder, listening to his answers, making sure that he wasn't saying things that could get the company in trouble. And Ubisoft knows now, after many failures at this, that the community is very unforgiving. So if they promise something and don't come through, if they let something slip,
To put
and
it lightly.
yeah, like they'll get eviscerated.
Did you already like this morning, right after the new update dropped, there were like two top posts on the Rainbow Six subreddit, and both of
Mhm.
them were just complaining about how Hibana's spooky headgear looks now. Like that's
Stupid. Who cares?
yeah, idiotic.
Yeah,
But that's what a large number of the
that's
player
what it
base
is. That's
cares
how it
about,
goes. Yeah.
and Epi has to be sensitive to that, which I understand.
Yeah. But still, very softball questions. I mean, it's tough. It was really cool that they got him on, like I said, but it is tough when you're talking to somebody who's basically a PR rep for the company, and then asking them questions. And he gave pretty long-winded non-answers, to be honest. Like I felt myself kind of zoning out during a lot of those answers that he was giving.
Yeah, I was excited
because
to
it
learn
was just
that
a bunch
he's-
of like legalese.
Yeah, I was excited to hear that he's also a motorcycler or motorcyclist.
That was really, yeah. So learning about his like backstory and his backstory, his R6 universe,
the lore of Epi.
yeah, the lore behind Epi, was actually really cool. So learning that he's ex-military, that he's been playing games, shooters for a long, long time, since like Ghost Recon, way back in the day, and been in PC gaming for a long time. That he rides motorcycles to the point where he's been in many accidents, and that's actually what got. Just go listen to the podcast. It's really interesting stuff talking about him personally. Yeah, that all was great.
Yeah, and
But
actually
I think that
there
the
were
answers
parts,
to the game questions were pretty underwhelming.
yeah, there were some parts of it that were pretty interesting as far as learning about how the company is sort of restructured.
Right.
So, and that was actually the most interesting part, but you still don't really learn about how any of that is going to affect like how we play the game.
No, I mean, we can make some assumptions, right? Like the whole point of doing anything is to do it better, right? Ubisoft isn't actively trying to make things worse, although sometimes they do make things worse, but that's an accident. They're trying to make a good game. The people that make the game really care about it. And you can tell by all the lore they put into it, all the work and care they put into putting on events and putting out content, non-gameplay related content.
Yeah.
And I think what that means, and the restructuring that happened is that they actually dedicated what they call cells to specific discrete aspects of the game. So like the matchmaking system has its own cell, the art division has its own cell, the gameplay mechanics and coding has its own cell. Basically everything that can be divided up and put into its own little box and given its own team has been done.
Yeah.
Has been.
The balance team is probably the most interesting one to me. Like
The balance team,
There's a
that's-
balance cell.
Right. That's got to be a fun job. Just go in and like figure out what's broken and how to fix it. Like I think that is something that I think most of that will affect the players the most, right? A lot of players don't really care about the lore. They don't understand or really, I mean, they care about the matchmaking on the back end because nobody wants diamonds to be picking up silvers and then queuing against golds, right? Nobody wants that to happen.
Right.
But that's stuff that
And
happens
yet,
on the
here
back
we are
end that
3
we will
years
not hear
after
about.
release, and
Here
it's
we
still
are,
possible
yeah.
for diamonds to queue with coppers.
Yeah, and I think that's also part of the reason why this restructuring thing is cool, is because it gives them the flexibility to act independently of each other and more quickly, which because they don't have to be waiting for. And this is also what was detailed in the interview, was that they no longer have to wait for everybody to get on the same page to push out smaller updates. And what they said is they're going to be aiming for more frequent, smaller updates.
Yeah, which I think would be awesome. The one thing I'm worried about is
Yeah.
just how small updates can come with big bugs.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we'll be treated to a lot of cool new stuff, but maybe we'll also just be treated to a lot of bugs and big issues. But who knows? Like, did you get the impression from that interview that they were talking about each cell they are all developers as well? Like they can come up with something and then actually do it themselves? Or is it like they've just got a couple people in each cell that come up with the ideas and then they send that to the development team and then the development team does that?
I was under the impression that the cells are developers themselves. I mean, obviously not, like maybe not the art cell,
Yeah.
But I was under the impression to me that these cells sort of come up with their own ideas and work sort of relatively autonomously.
Mm-hmm.
And then, maybe they have some sort of coordinator. I'm sure, I'm actually absolutely 100% positive they have some kind of coordinator or manager that either gives them ideas or directs them or coordinates between different cells to make sure that, if something needs coding, then it can go to that particular cell. But I was under the impression that it was sort of like they took all of the developers that were doing different things but working together and split them up into their own little groups.
Yeah.
Just to put all of the eggs in one basket, so to say.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that all comes together.
I think honestly, I'm optimistic about it. I mean, it would be different if they were doing it from a monetary standpoint, like it makes them more money, or if they were taking like an EA game model, where hey, we have a cell that does nothing but loot boxes,
Yeah.
Which they might have. Who knows? I'm actually, they probably do. They have a monetization team, but they're doing it. The goal behind it is to better the health of the game and the health of the community and the stability and structure of the game, which I believe, for one thing. I mean, it's just, you have to take it at face value because there's obviously no hard evidence of anything yet, but I think things like the SI playlist are a great example of a cell developing something and bringing it to the game that everybody liked. And like the seasonal events, they plan on having more seasonal events. That's its own development cell.
Oh, you just reminded me of the thing that actually pissed me off the most about that interview. It was when when they were talking about whether or not they should put pick and ban in ranked. Epi, like, dead ass, straight faced, said the SI playlist wasn't reliable for like gaining any information. Like, he basically just said it was worthless as far as like determining whether or not it would work in ranked.
I disagree with you, and here's why. Because that conversation to me was about the strength or relative strength or weakness of operators and how the information that they gleaned, because the question was, if we were talking about the same thing.
Oh, yeah, okay, I see where you're going.
Yeah, so the question was about Get Flanked, I think, asked, like, Blitz had like a 62% ban rate. Does that mean that you need to look at him as too powered and make some changes? Which, by the way, they're already doing to shields. They're already down tuning them somewhat.
Yeah, they're. Did they actually? I haven't noticed. Did they actually reduce the ADS time on shield?
I have
operators?
no idea.
I haven't noticed.
I don't play shields, dude. I fucking hate them.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't actually played any shield ops since the patch dropped, but
it's something worth testing. I doubt it. I think that someone like Rogue 9 would have jumped on that immediately and said, "Here's the new changes."
Yeah, you might be right. I would like to.
I don't think
I would like to
through.
confirm it, but yeah.
Well,
I mean,
let's do it, man. Pause the cast. We'll go confirm it right now.
Even in the context of talking about operators that get banned a lot in the SI playlist, like it's really easy for people to just make the argument of like the people who played the SI playlist are not every player in the game. Therefore, the actions of people in the SI playlist are not valid in terms of determining game balance or preferences even. Like, it should be obvious to everyone that people don't like playing against Blitz, and seeing him with a high ban rate should be patently obvious that he's a dumb operator that isn't necessarily overpowered. He's just incredibly frustrating to play against. And every time you die to him, it's like, it doesn't mean anything. You're just like, I got blitzed. Fuck me. So, like,
my hands are tied. Like, what do you want me to do?
Yeah,
basically.
Pretty much. It's either you crossfired him or you died. So, like, whatever. But the issue I had with that line of talk that Epi went through was he made it sound like there's just nothing to glean from the SI playlist, and which I wholly disagree with. Like, I think it's a farce to think that like you get a large number of people playing a certain game mode, the SI playlist, and then you see their tendencies. It's okay. It really is. It's completely okay to extrapolate that information to the rest of the Siege player base. Like, there were so many people playing SI. Like, I don't think I had a single SI playlist, like, matchmaking queue that lasted more than, like, 30 seconds. Like, there were a shitload of people playing that. So, to say that it's, like, not valid for the purposes of balance, or to just, like, even see what people's preferences are, like, look at the pick rate in SI. Like, I get that it's not going to be perfect. Like, not everybody in SI was trying to play the most competitive ever, but they were definitely banning the operators that they just do not want to play against. And Blitz was one of them. Like, whether or not you're playing ranked or casual or SI playlist, you don't want to play against Blitz, so you ban him.
That's true. The one quibble I would have with that argument is that I think that you'd probably agree with me, is that the developers do and should prioritize balancing based on Pro League and not on the casual player base. So I think that what he was trying to get across is that if you weight the information that they gain from the SI playlist ban percentages against the Pro League ban percentages and how that's played, I think that the Pro League just wins out, regardless, because that's the height of competitive balanced play.
Right. And like I said, Blitz isn't actually overpowered, and everybody should be aware of that. But for the sake of not necessarily balance as far as like this operator's too good or this operator's too weak, like I'm talking about frustration levels and operators that just don't fit in the game or make any sense, like Lion or Blackbeard.
Well, if we're talking about operators that don't fit in the game,
there's a few.
There's a lot. There's a few of those, but it's all personal opinion, I guess, because we're not the developers of the game. It's not our IP, right? They have the sole ability to determine what comes. They could completely ruin the game if they wanted to and introduce a whole bunch of shit.
Yeah, but I do agree with you that they should be actually making balance changes as far as like weakness and strength. They should make those based on Pro League and like top ranks, so like Diamond, and I hesitate to even say Platinum, but
depends on the time of season.
yeah, good point. But they just need to like realize that there is info to be gleaned from SI playlist, and that it's not all worthless.
That was the answer that probably was required. I think that he gave an honest answer and said, basically, we don't care. Because it was a casual environment in terms of matchmaking.
Yeah, well, my problem with that is that I understand not wanting to use the information gleaned from it, but it, like...
Well, that's the thing, that's the thing where I think he made the mistake, is that I think that they do. I think that they do use the information gleaned from it, especially when you think back to like the MP5 nerf and the Cav rebalance / nerf, whatever. Like that was okay, casuals, here you go. Like, you asked for it. You wanted balancing changes based on your everyday experience, and you got them. You don't like getting spawn peeked. You don't like getting interrogated. Here you go.
Which makes it all the more hilarious that those two changes got a whole bunch of backlash, like the moment that they came out.
Yeah.
Like, everybody was like...
I said, who gives a shit,
There were
dude?
so many people reeing that the MP5 got a nerf and the Caveira got changed. And then, like, after I posted
doesn't make a difference,
like, the actual Caveira damage numbers over distance, like, everybody kind of calmed the fuck down. But like, everybody's initial reaction was just like, "Ree!" Like, I want to play Caveira. It was like, you still can, but now like you don't get dumpstered by Caveira so hard. So,
well, and she's more consistent too.
Yeah.
Not to really get into the details of it. It's in the past, and it died down. Nobody gives a shit anymore. People still play Doc and Rook. If they're like ACOG warriors or whatever, or Doc anyway.
Yeah.
and it made no difference, not that I could tell, in pick rates.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So I mean, we'll see when the next charts come out, the pick rate and win delta charts. But I don't see a difference in my time playing the game, and that was Ubisoft saying, "You asked for this, here you go." Like, you know,
You just reminded me of something else that's related to pick rate history, or not pick rate, but like player preferences. And it is that just recently on r/Rainbow6, one of the mods posted a survey to get the idea of what people's favorite operators, favorite maps, least favorite maps, which maps they think should be in ranked, which ones they think should be in Pro League.
did you say this was on the main subreddit or Siege Academy?
Main subreddit.
Oh god.
They do
I don't
one.
even want to know.
They do one every single
Yeah, every season.
single season, and so this one, it's basically no different. Like, they pretty much ask the exact same questions every time.
Yeah.
And if you look at the
Get a
results
baseline.
for any of them, I'm trying to pull them up real quick, because man, I'm not even gonna say his name, the moderator who posted it, because I have a beef with him. Like, the entire moderation of the main sub is pretty garbage, but
Yeah.
so
The main sub is pretty garbage in general.
yes. So here it is. Results for the seasonal subreddit survey, Operation Wind Bastion. Came out 2 days ago. And so it's basically exactly what you would expect in a good way. Like, people don't like playing on terrible maps. People do like playing on the Pro League maps. All of the maps that are in ranked have a bit of a higher rating than all the maps that are only in casual. And the problem with this particular interview, or this survey, was just that there weren't any complete standouts where you're just like, oh, see, we should obviously get rid of New Hereford, or like, see, we should obviously get rid of Skyscraper or whatever, even though those were rated lower than the other maps. So for instance, I'm going to go down to least favorite maps. And actually, I find it kind of funny that I don't think people necessarily answered this question thinking about it that hard, but what do you think are the most balanced maps?
I mean, they're Redditors.
But
They're like scrolling through this while like taking a shit.
so on the most balanced maps, Yacht is actually I think it's the second lowest.
Yeah.
There is no map more balanced than Yacht.
I mean,
Like, it is by far the most balanced map, because it is just a box with no destructible floors. Like, back in the day when they had like the attacker and defender win rates, it was like dead even 50-50. Like, there's no variability in the way you play Yacht, so it's obviously just going to be a frag fiesta, and whoever wins wins. Like, it's balanced map. It's the best example of a map that is completely balanced but utter dog shit.
that is a fair point. I cannot argue with this. I was gonna say wrong, but you make a valid argument.
It's basically,
It is utter dog shit.
yeah. Like, imagine a map that is just one big room, and everybody spawns, and like maybe there's a couple little boxes on both sides, but like all the attackers spawn over here, all the defenders spawn over here. Like, it's an incredibly balanced map, because like you just peek each other, and whoever wins the gunfights wins. But like, it's not a good map,
It's balanced for a different game. That's what you're saying.
right?
It would be a great map in Call of Duty.
Correct. So least favorite maps to play on. This actually restores a little bit of my faith in the Siege community. Tower is the number one hated map.
Yep.
Followed by Favela. Followed by
Fair.
Oh, actually, New Hereford, number 3.
Oof.
So yeah,
Get wrecked, Ubisoft.
New Hereford, then Yacht, then Fortress, actually.
That's just newcomer blues.
Probably, but
think.
I kind of don't think it's going to change that much. because because Fortress is god awful. And
I disagree. It's grown on me. It's really not that bad. It might be because I won some clutch games on it, so like emotionally I feel better about it.
uh-huh. Yeah, and
But I really don't think it's that bad.
yeah, and our other teammate Icons has said that he doesn't mind Fortress that much, which I think you're all crazy, but whatever.
Dude, it's like once you get in the building, it's really not terrible. Oh, I don't think so.
If you say so.
I don't know.
I don't like the idea of having a perfectly fine map and then wrapping the entire map in a hallway
In a hallway, yeah.
just so that you don't have like outward facing sites. But
I tend to agree with the principle, and I think we've had this discussion already, that the devs are trying to reduce the amount of bomb sites that are directly exposed to the outdoors.
yeah,
Their first iteration of that was Fortress. Well, their first iteration of a new map designed. Actually, it was Villa, and Villa's fine.
well, if you want to get real technical, it was Tower. But the inside of Tower is actually the outside. So pretty much all the sites are touching the outside of the map.
Yeah,
Like the atrium is the outside of the map.
that's true. Yeah.
It's just the outside of the map where defenders can roam freely.
Yeah, Tower doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. So
Thankfully, I never really had to play it that much because I wasn't playing when it was in the rotation. So
yeah, you're lucky. One of the weird things though is on the question of which maps do you think should be in Pro League? It's all 7 of the Pro League maps. So Oregon, Clubhouse, Consulate, Bank, Border, Coastline, and Villa. And then the very next one is Chalet, which is totally understandable. Like Chalet is
That's
probably
fine,
the
yeah.
best if you're gonna go outside of the Pro League maps. And then the very next one is Fortress. So like people hate Fortress, but they also think it should be in Pro League. So I don't know. People are weird.
I think that people hate it because it's new, and I think that the people that don't hate it realize that it's just really not that bad. Maybe could be due for a buff in the future, but I honestly think it's fine. It's definitely, I prefer playing on Fortress to playing on Hereford or Theme Park or
I would take it
Chalet
over
even.
Hereford. I wouldn't take it over Theme Park.
I would take it over Theme Park. I don't like Theme Park. Theme Park's okay, but I don't know.
I think Theme Park is to the point now where
Can we talk about Cafe? Are we going to talk about Cafe again?
dude, I had to play on Cafe today. It was my very first ranked game of the season. Played on Cafe. I wanted to blow my brains out. Because, like, everything that it's like, you think that at the beginning of the new season, you're just going to be like, yeah, all these maps are good now. Like, something's changed, you know? Like, I'm fighting for a new MMR. I'm going to work my way up to Diamond this season, and it's going to be great. And Cafe is just a little speed bump on my way to get there. And I think we did end up winning the game, but it didn't, like, it played just as shitty as it's always played. Nothing changed.
Yeah.
Other than now there's a couple new operators, which I actually got to play against a Gridlock on that exact map today. And
Yeah.
she went to the Skylight.
She seems really powerful on Cafe.
Yeah, she went to the Skylight and covered the entire doorway from Cigar into Bar. She covered that, and then she threw down more of them over there, like, toward Cocktail. So basically just both ends of the big, long bar.
Yeah.
And it actually covered up quite a bit of space. The only problem with it was that since I was in Freezer, I could just shoot all of them.
Yeah, you can shoot those for free.
Yeah, so I think she's going to be strong on places where you can cover people's
There's only two.
approach to, like, stop you from planting, but they can't shoot them while watching. And I think that's
Well, and she has smoke grenades too. I mean,
Yeah.
like if you put her on Skylight, you tracks off Cigar and Cocktail smoke grenades, drop and plant. Like that's pretty easy.
yeah, I think that's where
And
she's going to shine.
there's only 2 staircases on Cafe as well. So like if you're trying to take piano and you're trying to hold the flanks, you get one on white, one on red. Easy peasy.
Yeah, I think she'll be decent on, say, like, Oregon basement attack. You just smoke off the hallway, and then you can just tracks, like, right at the opening
cubby
to the
rotate,
hallway,
yeah.
and then right at the cubby rotate, and then you're golden. Like, you can just plant for free, and you'll hear them coming a mile away. So I think she's
And
going
you
to be.
have one left too.
Yeah, you've got more. So I think she's going to be strong on certain sites for certain takes, but other than that, I think she'll be a little too situational and not that powerful just because people generally just be able to shoot their way through them pretty easily.
Yeah, well, and as an operator too, like her guns are pretty good, but she's just slow,
Hmm.
which is not in meta at the moment.
Yeah. I think she might be
Uh,
decent on border too. Like if you can get the upstairs attack going and you open up
mhm,
the holes looking toward Sandwich,
mhm.
then you can just smoke off uh, like between Sandwich and the bomb, going back in further to Armory. You can smoke that off and then Trax it, and then go in for
Yeah,
a free plant. Pretty much, you've got to worry. The only thing left to worry about is just a small office, which you can put another smoke down there for that.
yeah. If it depends on like what operators got picked and what the setup is for small office, because if it's opened up, then that's a problem. If it's mirrored, then that's kind of also a problem unless you smoke it off. But
Hmm.
um, yeah, I mean Gridlock, I haven't played yet. Right, today's the first day
Hmm.
of the test server. Uh, I it's a 49 gigabyte download. It took me 3 hours,
Yeah, I turned mine
and
on
I just
before I went
woke
to
up too
work.
late. Yeah, I should have done that. I should have. But I just woke up too late, and then we started recording. So didn't really get a chance. I mean, I played a lot of the test server anyway. So like I've played Gridlock and Mozzie. Um, I like Gridlock's guns. I don't like how slow she is and how much noise she makes.
Hmm.
Her gadget it's like you said, it's situational. There are certain sites where it's pretty powerful, and then certain where it's kind of useful in any situation because it makes a ton of noise. So you can mask a plant, you can mask a you're trying to bust in a window or something.
Hmm.
Um, and it actually does a decent amount of damage. Like what was it, like 10 per tick?
Yeah, like you've definitely got to shoot them if you're.
Yeah, you can't like walk through the whole
Because here's the
set.
thing, 10 damage doesn't seem like a lot, but that
It's
takes
a
a
lot.
lot of guns on the attacker side. It takes a lot of guns from a 3-shot kill to a 2-shot kill.
Yeah, that's more than like pre-nerf goo mines. That's almost as much as pre-nerf Capital bolts.
Hmm.
Well, I guess well, speaking of that, so um the Capital changes that were originally on the test server got reverted like pretty fast, right?
Yeah.
So they switched the propagation back to how it used to be.
Yeah, which if you go back to episode 3 or 4 of the podcast,
Who knows?
uh,
Who knows?
we've just made so many episodes now that I just can't even keep track of them anymore. But
I have the worst memory, dude.
same. But yeah, episode 3, I think it was. I talked about exactly that. That I
Mhm.
thought there were going to be certain situations where Capitao was just going to be really overpowered, and I think I was right
Yeah.
because they reverted him.
Yeah. I would agree.
Yeah. So
And
after,
they seem to agree as well.
yeah. So after seeing what
Well, no, like, a lot of that came from the pro feedback as well, right? Because there were
I
some
think so.
pro players that
Yeah,
went
there's
in
an
and
ex-pro coach. I think his name is Vapo. I don't remember which team he ever played for anymore. But I think it was an NA player, maybe, or maybe he's EU. I forget.
couldn't tell you.
But Vapo, like the very first day that the TTS was out, he had the same idea that I did. He was like, "Oh, you could just like pistol a hole in the floor, and then
Mhm.
flame off up above."
Yeah, there's no risk to this.
Yeah, there's zero
Like,
risk, and it was definitely too good. Like the ability of it to actually, I guess for anyone who didn't see what the changes were, which I assume everybody has, but I'm just gonna go through it.
you never know.
So if you're not totally brought into what exactly the change was to Capitao, they made it so that it does 12 damage instead of 9 or instead of 19 per tick. So it
Mhm.
does almost half damage. And then they made it a bigger radius, like a much bigger radius actually, like two and a half, three times the radius. And then they also
Mhm.
made it so that it would fall from wherever you shot the arrow. So, for instance, if you shoot it on a ceiling, it drops down to the ground and then spreads out to that same radius, like that big
Mhm.
radius. So, the way that it was really overpowered was you could just go to a floor below wherever the defenders are, and then you could shoot one hole in the ceiling and then shoot the flame, like the bolt, up through that bullet hole, hit the ceiling, and then all the flames would drop down onto the ground, and
spread out into a damage and
yeah, so and it was so big that it would flush people out of pretty much any hiding spot. Like there's no way you were gonna stay. Like the example I gave in the podcast was the exact one that I went and tested, and it was like, oh yeah, this is broken as hell.
Yeah.
You can, from the outside of Vent's window on border, you can shoot up through the ceiling to right where half wall is, and then hit the ceiling above half wall with the arrow, and then it'll drop down on half wall. Some people call it
Yeah,
bunker.
making like a completely invisible bullet hole that you know, like if you're playing up there, you get a bullet tracer, but that's about it.
Yeah, like, and I put a silencer on Capitão's pistol, like, just for that. I was like, there's no way anyone would ever be able to counter this, because they would never see the tracer, they wouldn't even hear the bullet, unless they
Probably
were
not.
paying a lot of attention.
Or just it was just happened to be really quiet. But
Yeah.
on border, yeah, do not attempt to board the helicopters. Okay, just don't do it.
Right. So yeah, and it covered the entirety of half wall, so like they'd have to leave
Yeah.
or just burn to death. So,
Eh,
and even if they try to jump over
Guess
the
I'll
wall
die.
straight in front of them, like that's a death sentence because they're putting themselves in harm's way. If they run
Well,
yeah,
the
out
whole-
the
the
side
whole
of it, it
reason that
doesn't
you're-
matter where they go. Like they're gonna be within
Yeah.
the range of somebody to shoot.
if you're coordinated, yeah, the whole reason to flush somebody out of that position is because you're trying to take armory. So hopefully you either have part of the wall open or you're peeking the doorway.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you say, hey, I'm flushing this person out, then literally all you have to do is just hold the angle on the pillar, and then they're dead.
Yeah, and the best part of it is like,
Unless you're Kyler in our last Go For, where he got traded from the guy we flushed out of half wall, which is hilarious.
so there was the only way that
From
person
Pink.
doesn't die with that, like, you're probably going to kill the person and not even get traded out, just because of
Probably.
if there's flames all over you and you're taking damage, you're going to sprint out of there. And if you don't sprint, you're going to be taking a whole bunch of extra damage.
A lot more damage, yeah.
So you're either going to catch them sprinting or you're going to have an easier gunfight, because 2 ticks of that and every single attacker weapon is a 2-shot kill. Like, period. Pretty sure. Like, I'm trying to think of a situation where it wouldn't be. Like, maybe if you're a 3 armor with rook armor and it's an Ash shooting you, because her gun does only 39 damage, I think. So, like, it might still be a 3-shot kill, but I don't think so.
Well, it got reverted in any case. They realized it was too strong.
Yeah. So I'm hoping they come back with it exactly the way it was,
Yeah.
minus the being able to fall from like the ceiling or fall
Yeah,
from
the
walls.
propagation system, the whole point of the propagation system was to prevent it from going through reinforced walls. Or even unreinforced walls, just to prevent it from killing people on the other side of stuff, because it's not supposed to.
Yeah.
That was the original goal behind it, which I agree with. I agree with the goal. I think that should be a thing in the game. But yeah, this particular iteration of that was just not the right solution.
Yeah. See, I think they could make it somewhat similar to just a like smokes canisters. Like you're just trying to cover an area with damage so that people can't push
I'm
through it.
honestly fine. Like if they can figure out a way to make it so it doesn't seep through walls, if they just increase the range of effect and decrease the damage, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I agree.
But if they can't figure out a way to prevent it from going through walls, then that doesn't work either. So
Right. Yeah, because now
Like,
it's
I understand-
now it's 10 times worse because you can send it through walls and it has a bigger radius.
and it's
So that'd be-
bigger.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be really bad.
So Oregon basement, good luck.
Yeah, I'm hoping they find a way to make it exactly the way it is now. Just don't let it fall from surfaces. Like, just give
Yeah.
it like an upper limit to how far it can fall, and then if it falls any farther than like, I don't know, 1 meter, then just
I mean,
delete it.
if they can give it just like, I don't know. I'm not a developer. I don't know, but
Yeah, I'm not sure if the technology is there to make it easy to actually program that, but that's what I would like to see. I would like to see it be exactly
Right,
the same way
right.
it is now, just not falling.
yeah, exactly. And then I don't know, sort of keeping in theme with talking about the new stuff that's coming in. I don't know. Did you get to play much Mozzie yet?
I've only played a couple games with him, but I like what I've seen. He's
So I didn't play a lot of Mozzie like during the test server, because he doesn't really fit my play style. But I really like the idea behind him, and I really like the shake up of the droning mechanic in the game. I think it's really, really cool.
Yeah, I agree. I think they struck a decent balance where it's pretty easy to fall into his traps because you don't get a warning very
Yeah.
early. Like you've got to be kind of moving around pretty uh, intentionally, I
Well,
guess.
and you're messing with people's muscle memory at this point, like because people just
Yeah,
like
people jump all the time with their drone just to move faster.
yeah.
If you do that into a Mozzie
Well,
trap,
and
you're just screwed.
at higher levels, people are already conservative with their drones, so I don't think he's going to have a huge impact at like high levels of play. But at low levels of play, dude, it's a free for all with drones, and people just suicide their drones into the bomb site, or just like try to mark people as much as they can. Like that's Mozzie. Like
Yeah, I think he's going
that's
to be
just
crazy strong in casual and like lower ranks.
yeah, and his guns are really good.
Yeah, I like both of his guns. Both of his guns are super
He's
fun.
a 2-2, and he has a choice between barbed wire and C4, which is just perfect.
Yeah, because I think he's like Valkyrie light kinda in a way because
Kind of, yeah.
if you can get 3 drones, that's kind of like having 3 Valkyrie cams. But now you can also use them a little bit like a yokai drone, like an aggressive yokai, in order to like go find people and send a defender behind it. So that's pretty strong because
Well, I think who was it? I think it was Skittles or Bolo, maybe both, but one of them or maybe both of them put out videos where they did exactly that. They played Mozzie, they captured drones, and then they droned ahead of themselves and were able to roam pretty effectively with that tactic.
yeah, and you can also play him vertically like a Valkyrie because if you catch a drone and then put it in sight or something, or just put it in whatever room that you want to be able to blow people up from below, you can kind of play him like a Valkyrie. You can even you can even send him to whatever, like send the drone to whatever room they're in. Like for instance on Coastline, say you catch a drone in I don't know, Blue Bar, and then you can send it up Cool Vibes and into VIP, and then you can go into kitchen and blow people up from below. So like that's pretty cool. I think
It is.
he's gonna be good at stuff like that, like getting intel mid round to where the intel needs to
Yeah.
be is going to be pretty interesting. And it's also going to be interesting to find out just how well the attackers respond to seeing captured drones, like whether or not they know that it's a captured drone. Because I think it's going to
Right.
be a little more difficult to find out than people are thinking.
Yeah, I mean,
I haven't had much
it's-
luck knowing which drones are good and which ones are bad.
the color, I mean, their behavior is one thing, but it messes with your mind because you have this sort of set of actions that you undertake. It's a script that you run in your brain as a defender.
Uh-huh.
Drones are the enemy. You shoot them 100% of the time, no matter what.
Yeah,
And you even can go out of your way, like to run out and shoot a drone at the beginning of a round if you know it's there, because it's very, very important utility. And as an attacker, the script that you run is drones are my friend, 100%. There's no deviation. Drones are my friend.
yeah. Actually, fun
Except
story.
for yokais, I guess.
Fun story from earlier today. I was playing with the UNG guys, the collegiate team that I coach, and one of my players,
University of North Georgia, for those of you who don't know.
one of the players, like one of the guys on my team, he was on attack, and I think he might have been playing Thermite, and he like went to Thermite a wall, and his charge got, I forget if it got electrocuted or if it actually got zapped by a Twitch drone, like by an enemy, by a Mozzie
That
Twitch
happened
drone.
that happened to me on the test server. Yeah.
And then he
it was hilarious.
and then he like turns around and looks around and he sees a Twitch drone and shoots it. But apparently he shot like one of the
It
good
was
Twitch
the
drones.
wrong one. Oh my god,
So
that's hilarious.
Twitch drones especially are going to be hard to determine which are which.
That's a
'Cause there's-
that's a really
there's no
cool
light, right?
interplay that I just love. I don't think so. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
because that's what happened to me. I was on Chalet and I was trying to thermite open the garage wall, and yeah, my first charge got okay, well, and I was solo queuing, so I wasn't communicating. Like the Twitch didn't tell me that her drone got captured. So so like I put my thermite charge on the wall and it gets zapped by a Twitch drone. I'm like, you cheeky bastard! Like that's
did it come?
hilarious.
It came out the drone hole.
It came
zapped
out of the
it,
drone
and
hole.
That's really
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, he Mozzie tricked me, dude. Like I was impressed and upset all at the same time. And then so like I baited it. Like I put my second charge up there and then just stared at the drone hole
Yeah.
and then shot it and then got the wall open eventually. But like
Hmm.
I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, that's well played.
Um, I was like, this is the new meta. Like this is something that you actually have to worry about now. Did Mozzie get your drone? Like
Yeah, and especially
if you EMP it, does the drone like does it just stop functioning temporarily? Does it blow up? Like who knows? Somebody knows, I'm sure.
yeah, and I think especially in like high gold and platinum where Twitch is just aggressively overplayed. Like you don't need to play
Yeah.
Twitch as much as golds and platinums play Twitch.
No. She's a comfort frag pick.
Yeah,
She's yeah.
but I think Mozzie could be really powerful in that elo range just because of how
Yeah,
much
if you,
Twitch
if you
is
catch
played.
a Twitch drone, oh man, that's open season.
Yeah,
Like you have a mobile Maestro cam at that point.
yeah, and to move on to other new stuff, the new map I finally got to play on it like an actual game. I played a ranked game on it today, and
Did you?
I think
How was it?
I think I pretty much feel exactly the same way you do about which sites are good. The one
Yeah.
that's adjacent to the garage seems pretty bad,
Yeah, it's sketchy.
but the rest of them seem good as far as I could tell. Like they seem pretty balanced.
Yeah, I mean, playing it on the test server, I liked it a lot, and I think that the map design team did a really good job, making it easy to learn and color coded and sectioned off. So like, the only problem I have is that there's a pretty serious choke point, sort of right at the corner of the L, on the top floor. In any case, I haven't figured it out on the bottom floor as well.
I think that same choke point is still there, although I think there's also a soft wall a little bit away from it that you could use for rotate if you had an impact.
Yeah,
think.
that's true.
I think.
There is. Oh, you mean on the bottom floor?
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, on the top floor, like the choke point, sort of right in the dead center of the map, is pretty like. If you can hold that part down as a defender, you basically locked off like half of the map.
Yeah. That and
Which is really
the choke
it's
point
interesting to me.
is the bull room, correct?
Yeah.
I was really disappointed that you couldn't stick a Valkyrie cam on the disco ball above the bowl.
Can you not?
No, it falls right off.
That sucks.
Yep.
Too strong, maybe.
Definitely. I mean, it's the same color as the Valkyrie cam. OP.
Yeah. You can still throw it in the shark.
Yep.
And I didn't know this, but you can actually get on top of the shark too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I played a game where there was a clash up there for some reason. It's the test server. People are obviously testing stuff out, but yeah, you can get on the shark. Yeah, the map is pretty good. I think it's going to be a pretty popular pick in the community.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously I haven't played it enough, but I could totally see
It's fun.
it.
It's bright.
Yeah, everything about it aesthetically is good, and as far as I can tell
Yeah.
so far, everything about it, the way it plays is good. I like that there's a whole bunch of destructible floors. Just in the amount of time I played today, like round one, we were attacking the bottom floor, like the compressor room,
Oh yeah.
and I was trying to push in through that compressor door. Got killed by a guy like playing behind it, and then I was like. 4 rounds later, I was playing defense in the site above that, and I was like, I think the compressor room's below me, so I just like blew out the floor and I found the door where I died in. I was like, oh, I could have just like gone up here. So I think there's
Yeah.
going to be a lot of situations like that. I think, I hope Fuse.
Well, that makes roaming really important.
I think Fuse would actually be pretty good to clear out that entire compressor room, because it's a small room. And there's a shelf kind of like if you go through that door looking right at that yellow compressor and look to the right, there's a half wall that a smoke can play behind really easily. Fuse could actually flush all that out, although you'd probably just take Buck because Buck is better. But
I'd take both. I'd be so happy if Fuse came back into the meta. Like Fuse used to be one of my favorite ops.
yeah, Fuse is my favorite op, other than maybe Thermite. But I just I haven't played him in so long because he's just bad.
Yeah, he is. There's really no reason to take him in any situation.
Yeah, I think I was trying to figure
Unless
out
you're memeing.
exactly how I would ideally set up that defense and compressor, because I think that one's
Hmm.
actually going to be really good, especially because you can play it vertically so well. I
Right.
think you can open up so if you're in garage and you go through that doorway into compressor, and then
Yeah.
there's a soft wall on the far side of that room from that doorway.
Hmm.
I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities to set up that site really interestingly, because there's a soft wall there that goes into another room with some soft walls to the right of that, and then
Hmm.
it kind of like
Yeah,
wraps
I
around
actually
to the
encountered a pretty
restaurant.
good mirror setup in that room.
Yeah, I could imagine. There's just a lot of soft wall, a lot of options for how to set up that particular site, and I think other sites
Hmm.
will probably end up with similarly interesting ways to play them. So it seems like a great map. I'm hoping it has at least two good sites. I think it has three,
Yeah,
but we'll see.
it's yeah, it seems like a good map. Hopefully, there's nothing like super game breaking that somebody encounters. You know, like sometimes it takes a couple weeks to really work out all the kinks.
Hmm.
Um, but so far, all seems well, and it seems like it's a better entry into the map pool than a lot of the previous maps have been.
Agreed,
Um,
100%.
and then also the newcomer playlist came out, you know, with this patch, which I think is a great addition to the game. I mean, you don't have to play it if you're under level 50. You're not restricted to it, but it is there for you if you want to.
I'm interested to see
Um,
how many people actually go and play it.
we'll never know.
Right. The and actually I have a little bit of hope because in the Siege Academy subreddit 2 hours ago somebody posted, I'm liking the newcomer playlist so far, and he's someone who's below level 25,
Mhm.
and he's like, I'm still pretty new to the game, level 23, uh played a few games in the newcomer playlist, and it's actually way better than casual. So yeah, people I guess are liking it. At least this guy is, and I hope people play it because it is a better introduction into some of the better
Oh
maps. I
yeah.
think
Yeah.
Chalet is a kind of weird pick, but also I get it.
Well, okay. So if we're talking about the map picks, I disagree with all of them, but we can go into that. Sorry, you can continue.
um, I know we can go right into that. I think
Well, so I disagree with all of them.
I will say that I think I know you don't, but I think Bank is actually a reasonably easy map to learn. It's it seems large, but that's only because lobby is just gigantic.
Mhm.
There are three staircases, which is true for both Chalet and Consulate as well. I think it might have been a
Mhm.
little bit easier if they had, like, I don't know why they picked these two particular maps, but I think it would have been a little bit easier if they would have put Border in there. I think Border is just a fundamentally easier map to understand.
If you're talking maps to introduce people to the game, I would pick Border, Oregon, and like Clubhouse or Coastline maybe. Um, but so the reason why so that I disagree with all of these map picks is has nothing to do with their learnability, has nothing to do with their size. It has everything to do with the fact that of how they play, right?
Hmm.
In Pro League specifically, but even not in Pro League, even in ranked and a little bit in casual, all three of these maps are roamer heavy. So in order to attack them, you have to roam clear, which requires coordination and sort of a understanding of a greater understanding of map knowledge
Hmm.
than say a map where you don't have to roam clear as much, like Border or Oregon. And also on defense, it requires you to roam in order to have an effective defense of most of the sites. Not all of them, right? On Bank, if you hold like the top floor, for instance, you don't really have to roam below you because nobody's going to come in from below you and shoot you through the floor. That's sort of an advanced tactic, right? The CEO hold is an advanced strategy
Yeah.
that requires coordination to pull off. If it's just a bunch of people doing random stuff, then it doesn't work. But the basement hold on Bank pretty much requires you to roam. Otherwise, the attackers gain map control way too fast and then can bait out your utility and just plant easily if they're coordinated. And it's the same with Consulate. It's very roam heavy. You know, you have people on all 3 floors,
Mm-hmm.
if not at least the floor above you, whichever site you're playing on. And it's the same with Chalet. Chalet, again, very roam heavy. If you're not holding the top floor in the kitchen trophy defense, or if you're not roaming at all on the basement defense, it's sort of less of a big deal. But like if you have nobody watching, like blue, for instance, then that's a huge oversight.
Yeah. I think you could make the argument, though, that since those maps are so roam heavy, it will teach people the concept of roam clearing faster. Like, it might be brutal and, like, not pretty, but people will be like, oh, you don't have to play off site because those maps are so roam heavy that maybe just through sheer, like, brute force, you're forcing people to roam and then by proxy teaching them to roam clear.
Yeah.
So
That's a point. That is a point, I guess. But
Maybe
my
that's
sort
their
of counter argument to that is that roaming lives in, like, okay, so those 3 maps live and die by the roam, like I've said previously.
mm-hmm.
And roaming lives and dies by aim. And positioning, I guess, but a lot of it is it's just an aim battle, like who wins the gunfight. So roaming promotes a more gunfight heavy play style, which to me is not indicative of the soul of the game. So teaching people how to roam and roam clear more effectively sort of engenders this gunfight heavy play style in all these new players, in my opinion, which is not beneficial to the overall health of the game, I guess.
Maybe. I can see where you're going with that. I think it'll probably...
I think it's fine. It's probably fine.
Yeah, we have this, like...
That's just my little critique of it.
we've had this, like, super deep discussion on the, like, weighing the benefits, but I think in the end, yeah, it'll probably just be fine.
Yeah.
Like,
it's just my
totally
little
see your
thought
viewpoint,
about, I
and
would have picked
a-
different
yeah,
maps.
I would have picked different maps too, but yeah, I think in the end, it'll probably be fine regardless. And they definitely could have picked worse maps, so...
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I guess I'll give them that. Let's...
And they changed the it came in that you have to be level 30 to play ranked now, which is like also fine, probably a good thing.
Yeah.
I honestly don't feel like anybody under level probably like 50 or 60 should really be playing ranked anyway. Like if you're honestly brand new to the game and have no prior experience, because there's so much to learn. So much to learn.
Well, here's the thing: do you avoid ranked because it's like more competitive and you don't want to like weigh down teammates or whatever, and because you don't know the maps well enough, or do you play ranked because it has a smaller map pool and you can actually learn the maps that you're playing, even though 14 is still way too many. You're not going to learn them, but it's better than 20. It's better than 20 maps, so. Maybe you...
That's a point. It depends on your personality, I would say.
Yeah. Well,
I'm the kind of person where I don't like being a burden more than I like, having a good playlist. So I had prior experience before switching to PC. I was a diamond on console during like Operation Health. Take that for what it's worth. But and even when I came back to PC, like I didn't play ranked for a while. Like I hunted and played casual, just to sort of get back into it. Even though I had all this map knowledge and game sense, and I just needed to work on my aim, basically.
Yeah.
But that's just my personality, right? Like I want to perform well, and I really hate losing. I don't want to be a burden. And so I kind of waited until I felt satisfied with my, but people who don't care or are more masochistic than I am will just jump in.
Yeah, I think new players, like brand new players who haven't played the game before, I honestly think it might just benefit them to go straight into ranked, like as early as possible.
I mean, they did
just because
they did change the casual playlist. The map pool is smaller. That's true, but they did change the casual playlist a little bit to align more with ranked, and then hopefully they change it a little bit more once ranked aligns more with Pro League, because what you really want is this sort of streamlined, moving everybody up as they play more. which is it. That should be the ultimate goal. I mean, you want as many high skilled players as you can.
Right. And I do think the game has kind of backed people into a corner as far as map knowledge is concerned, because you either play casual where there's 20 maps and like you can't possibly ever learn them well enough to perform well.
And there's no point to.
Yeah,
There's no point.
You don't ever need to learn house ever for any reason, or favela.
There's no benefit to like learning tower and being really good in casual.
Yeah,
Because like honestly, who cares?
exactly. Which is why they need to make the ranked pool even smaller so that it actually means something when you go to play ranked.
Yeah.
But
They should make the casual pool even smaller too. I mean, like, so what? Before we had Bartlett, which was a community requested, like, hey, we have this map that's just sitting here doing nothing, in a situation. Why don't you put it in the playlist? And then they were finally like, okay, fine, here you go. And it sucked. It was so bad. And it took him like a year to be like, okay, we're just pulling it out completely.
yeah.
And I think that they should do that with a few of the other maps too.
Yeah, they're like, it doesn't benefit the game at all to bring yacht and favela back into casual.
Which is a shame because I really like favela aesthetically, and it gives a shout out to the Brazilian community, which is huge. The Brazilian community is one of the main like proponents of the game. They've helped support the game just as much as the North America and EU and any other region. I mean, they're a huge aspect of this game.
Yeah, and there are parts of favela that I really like. Like, there are certain rooms that if they didn't have that exterior soft wall, like it'd be a pretty sweet setup. But and I do hope they eventually rework it, because I think the shell of favela is mostly fine.
Yeah, it's a pretty solid map.
Yeah, there's a couple little choke points that I'm just like, why is this even here? Like from the main from the weed room into like the main apartment or whatever on the second floor. That choke point is ridiculous, especially because the only way around that choke point is to go through the soft wall in weed into that one bedroom, which that bedroom has soft wall and a window in it. So like, it's not really a good alternative.
I mean, I guess you could rotate out the balcony and in through the window, but that's so risky. Yeah, that soft wall is typically opened up for rotates if you're playing that site.
Right. I think the map at this point is it's probably just too small to get rid of all of those. It's too small to get rid of all those exterior walls and then still have a playable map. I mean, it's not playable the way it is, but like, I don't think you could. No, you can't solve the problem just by hardening some of those soft walls. So
no, they'd have to pull a fortress and basically like build up around it.
Probably
they'd have to clubhouse the top floor, right, by attaching top pink with top yellow. Yeah. And then they'd have to add some exterior just buffer zones between the outside and the actual bomb sites.
I do really like just how vertical that map is. Like 3 floors all just kind of sitting there, like stacked on top of each other. Like, yeah, aesthetically it's awesome. It looks cool. There's like a whole bunch of different avenues to get into the building. Just parts of it just don't work, which is a shame because it is a pretty cool map.
Yeah. Playing it was always fun, sort of attacking like the bottom floor and the middle floor. But yeah, the top, like the whole yellow side is completely broken. And just its exposure to the outside is it's heinous. It's horrible.
Yeah. I'm almost wondering with the amount of new breach denial, like with Kaid, I wonder if you could maybe effectively play it.
That's interesting. Especially because the breach denial is stronger than the anti-gadget, I think, at the moment, right? Yeah, that would be an interesting thing to see, because like Thatcher can only do so much.
Yeah, and part of the problem with the way it used to be was, so if you're the best site on the entire map, it's almost comical how bad it still was. Like the best site
Hmm.
was the second floor, like the two bedrooms.
Yeah.
Um,
Green and
and
yeah.
if you're trying to play bandit there, you can only bandit trick one of those rooms at a time.
Right.
Like you, and the biggest problem was,
Because you can't. There's no
yeah, there's
rotates
no
between
rotates
them.
between
You
the
can't.
rooms, and if you do want to get from one room to the other, you have to expose yourself to like three different angles that are exterior facing.
Yeah. Weed, pink hallway, like
The window
that
in the
whole big ass
bedroom,
green wall. Yeah.
and the
The window.
doorway
The
in
whole.
the
Yeah.
one site in the one bedroom.
And you couldn't even reinforce everything. You had to like pick your reinforcements really carefully because you didn't have enough to cover yourself.
Yeah, but now Kaid can trick one side while Bandit tricks the other side. And while
Hmm.
like Kaid tricking isn't necessarily that great, like if you bring, and this is totally stupid anyway, and like maybe people are already doing this in casual, but like if
Who
you bring
knows?
Mute, Bandit, and Kaid, then maybe you make that site somewhat viable. Like you mute both of the walls to begin with, and then you wait for the
Yeah.
EMPs to go off, and then you start Bandit tricking and Kaid tricking. So
Well, and then what the attack brings Thermite, Hibana, Maverick, Twitch IQ.
yeah, and then Maverick's put in
Or
the
I
mix,
guess
and then
Twitch,
it's
like,
all just fucked
Twitch
anyway.
Thatcher.
So like, actually,
Yeah.
never mind. Yeah, because Maverick just opens it all for free.
Basically. Maybe not against Kaid, but
Well,
no,
well,
yeah,
he just
even
he just
well
does the
because with
trick
the
where,
Maverick
yeah,
trick,
he just goes all the way
which
across.
that I disagree with that. So if any of you are unaware, right, Maverick, you can Maverick your way across the top of a reinforcement and the bottom of a reinforcement, and then the reinforcement's gone,
Hmm.
and then you just are left with a soft wall, and it's really easy, and really stupid, and I don't like it at all.
Well, see, the problem isn't necessarily that that exists. It's the problem. The problem is that you can do it on walls that you can also rappel on, because it wouldn't
Yeah.
be safe to do unless you were rappelling. And unfortunately for Favela, you can do it even easier because you can get the bottom. So you just like get the top first, and then you rappel
Mhm.
all the way down to the first floor area, and then you get the bottom of
Mhm.
it. Like, and you,
Completely
yeah, you're
safe.
never exposed ever. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think the trick itself is fine.
But even on walls you can't rappel on. Well, I guess if you can't rappel on it, you can't get the top. So that's a
Yeah, you can
non-issue,
stand
but
up and like look as high as you want and get it, and then like go prone and like look up really high and like maybe mitigate your issues. As long as you have somebody watching, you'll probably be okay.
yeah.
But
I just think it's a dumb mechanic. I don't think it was intended.
yeah, it probably wasn't. You're probably right, and I think it probably would be best if they just patched that out.
I think so.
Mainly just for the sake of Clubhouse in Pro League, because like
Yeah.
that trick has become really common in Pro League.
Mhm.
I'm actually thinking about it a little bit. I'm actually slightly okay now with the fact that the Collegiate League has just outright banned that trick. Man, I
Oh,
didn't
have
think
they?
I would ever reach this point. I've been advocating that they just make it legal for the past month, but now I think I've completely changed my stance on it.
Wow, somebody who actually changed their mind on something.
Shit. This
It's a
wasn't supposed to
miracle.
happen.
Speaking of Pro League, um, you want to get into the Reddit post?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so we're gonna close this episode out with a learning experience. So, I'll just get right into it. So there was this post on r/Siege Academy, which is the subreddit dedicated to getting better at Siege. People just go to there to post advice or to post questions. It's actually a really good subreddit.
Unlike the main subreddit, which is mostly just to complain
Yeah, complain and fan art.
and post art. Yeah,
So Siege
and
Academy,
then complain about fan
Siege
art.
Academy usually does a pretty good job of upvoting only the smartest and most intelligent stuff. This one, on the other hand, I have a lot of issues with, and I'm gonna present the other side of the argument and state, and we're gonna like help.
The funny thing too is that the post itself presents its own counter argument, but we'll get into
Yeah.
that later.
So this post is titled "Pro Tip: Do not try to play like a pro player."
Which, can we just appreciate the irony of that right off the bat? Like, whether or not it was intended,
Yeah, the
he's basically asking for you to not listen to himself. But anyway,
So I'm just gonna. I haven't actually read this entire post in a bit, so I'm just gonna start reading, and if I feel like it's getting off topic, I'll just stop. But So the basic idea of this post is saying that you shouldn't try to mimic what you see pro players doing, which I'll just start reading it. So
It's just wrong on its face, but yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
so do not attempt to play like pro players in Pro League, especially if you are in gold or below. The reason I am saying this is for too long I myself have been attempting to do stuff pros do in tournaments and I consistently get punished. For example, when playing an entry fragger, I used to quickly drone an entry room and then just go in and die immediately. In Pro League, it worked great. After all, entry fraggers are supposed to do just that, get kills. But what I did not realize is this is a guy that does this for a living. He has the aim of a god, probably why his team puts him on Ash. Plus, his team is droning for him so they can warn him of defenders nearby. We're just going to stop right there and point out the blatantly obvious thing that
He wasn't playing like a fucking pro player.
exactly he was playing like a dumb like copper like brain dead like all aim no
Yeah,
brain.
quickly droning yourself into a room and then hopping in and dying is not even attempting to play like a pro.
Yeah, so and
Pros drone for the other teammates. They almost never do they drone themselves in unless they have to.
yeah, which he says at the end of this paragraph. He's like, he has the aim of a god, plus his team is droning for him so they can warn him of defenders nearby.
So stupid.
That last part of that last sentence is playing like a pro player. So you should play like a pro player. You should play like the pro player
should.
that has his team drone him in.
Yeah. That's like
So
that's the strat. That's the
yeah,
play.
so going on, this is just one example of many things I tried to emulate in ranked to no avail. This is because these players are a well-oiled, coordinated team. They drone for each other, push with each other, communicate, etc. I'm going to stop right there. These are all things that pro players do, and these are things you should be doing. So play like a pro
Yes.
player.
Please.
Maybe I'm just like butthurt because his title is so grossly misleading, but on we go.
I think you're probably butthurt because it has so many goddamn upvotes when it shouldn't.
Yes. So they drone for each other, push with each other, communicate, etc. Solo queuing and ranked, trying to buck open the floor below without anyone helping you, you'll probably just end up getting interrogated by Kavera. No shit, because you're not playing like a pro player. Pro players don't just go in and mindlessly buck under sight in order to...
Pro players are never alone. Almost. There are occasions where they have players that are so good that they could just go off and do their own thing. But for the most part, like G2, for instance, has a 3-second rule where all of their players are within 3 seconds of each other at all times so that they can refrag or reposition as they need to. Anyway, sorry, continue.
So this is what you should be doing, the author continues. It's simple as this. If you act like you are in Pro League game in ranked, you will do worse. People will do stupid shit constantly and get away with it because you overestimate them.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
People do stupid shit constantly and get away with it, but that's has nothing to do.
But
with
I disagree with the proposition that it's because you overestimated them.
No, yeah.
Which I think if I continue on this paragraph, it might shed a little more light. So people will do stupid shit constantly and get away with it because you overestimate them. You do not expect some alibi laying prone under a window because pros do not do that, and therefore you die to this idiot. Pros wouldn't jump in that window without knowing what's on the other side of it.
No shit.
And they would also be looking down every single time because maybe there's somebody there, maybe there's a frost trap there. A pro isn't going to jump into it blindly.
Well, they would drone it, but yeah.
Correct. Continuing that same paragraph, you will die to this idiot, not because he is better than you necessarily, but because you thought too highly of your opponents. False.
Wrong. Yeah, so that's just a dumb
You
thing to
didn't
say.
die because you thought too highly of your opponents. You died because you didn't drone. Which is what pro players do.
Which is what they do.
So
Yeah.
play like a pro player.
Please.
For a long time, this held me back. Eventually, I stopped having this outlook and decided to take myself back to the basics. I worked on aim and started to just keep in cover to minimize me dying, and I practiced playing either in objective or in a room vital to objective. Now my game has improved dramatically. Overall, this is what you should take from this post. 1. Do not overestimate your opponents. Number 2. Do not attempt to emulate what a pro player does in ranked. 3. Focus on the basics I
Wrong.
mentioned and more. So
Yeah.
so obviously number 3 is correct. Focus on the basics.
Well, duh.
Uh,
You could say that about literally
Yeah.
anything, and it would be correct.
so number 1, do not overestimate
How should I make
your
these cookies?
opponents.
Well, focus on the basics.
Like, bullet point number 1 makes just no sense. Like, there's no situation where you should be underestimating your opponents.
Right.
Until you know for sure that you are just better than them at gunning, which at that point you're still not overestimating because now you're just like, oh, these people are bad, I can just beat them. So like, unless you're just obviously better at aiming,
Well, you're probably underestimating at that point.
yeah,
But
once you've gotten to that particular point, you're now probably underestimating them. So like
Yeah.
the idea of overestimating an opponent getting you killed is kind of absurd.
It's just patently wrong. I mean, it, and the point of bringing up this whole post is, we're gonna break down how to learn from the Pro League and what you should be taking from the Pro League, and not necessarily just copying
What
everything that somebody does.
Yeah, you shouldn't be watching Pro League and being like, I'm going to do what that one particular player is doing, because the whole team as a whole is working in a certain way. And obviously,
which is what you should be doing.
Right. And obviously in a solo queue setting, that can be more difficult, and you have to factor that into how you play in solo queue.
And that's the point that I wanted to bring up, is that if you notice, everything about this post is I, me, I am, I will, I do this. It's not saying we, not saying my team that I play with. It's this guy solo queues. And that's a problem in and of itself. I realize that that's a large portion of the community, but don't solo queue. Just make some friends. Like, the game is not designed for 10 random strangers to play against each other.
And even if you
It just
do
isn't.
solo queue, like, you can still do what pro players do. It's just not going to be as pretty.
No, you can still coordinate. But the thing that the pro players do that you all should be doing, we all should be doing, is coordinating, communicating, droning, just those basic things. And those are the fundamentals of the game that you should be working on. I mean, learning the maps, making call outs, improving your aim, sure, but like a cohesive team can beat a cohesive team with bad aim can beat a disorganized team of good aimers any day, every round. Because that's just the way the game plays out, the way that the utility works and the maps work. Like, you don't have to shoot well to win rounds.
Yeah, amen to that, because I'm a terrible shot, and I still have a positive win-loss.
Me too, brother. Well, my shot's better now, but yeah. Coming from a support main, I win a lot of rounds where I don't kill anybody. And people make fun of me for my like 0.7 KD or whatever. And it's funny because I still beat them. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's about winning the rounds. And winning rounds is mostly based on time. Unless you're in casual, then you have infinite amounts of time.
Real talk.
Which they changed. Yeah, they changed a little bit now. But first of all, if you're solo queuing in casual, don't post your opinion on Siege Academy because it's worthless. Like, nobody cares. Nobody should be following your advice. And this goes back to the whole Pro League bias thing that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, this feels...
the game should be balanced for Pro League.
Yeah, this feels like a... like... Pro League shouldn't be the basis for what anything is balanced off of. Or, I don't know. I'm putting words into his mouth. I shouldn't go that far. But, like...
Well, that's sort of the vibe that you're getting, is like... Well, and then he says you shouldn't base your play style off of Pro League, which is in the same vein of... sort of in the same vein as it shouldn't be balanced toward Pro League, but it's like, don't play like pros because you're not a pro. But that argument defeats itself on its face because the game is competitive. And when a game is competitive, there's obviously going to be a meta, most effective tactics available, right? And the most effective tactics available are determined by the best players in the world. Who are the best players in the world at this game? The Pro League. It's the same as any sport or esport or competitive game, in that the top level players determine the best way to play the game, right? They dedicate their lives to figuring out how what's the best way to win in any given situation.
Yeah, and see, I
So
guarantee that unless barring some like crazy counter strat that like say G2 for example just knows that Team Secret is just never going to hold this one particular angle, like they just know for a
yeah,
fact, then
well, that's a research
yeah,
thing.
exactly. So barring some kind of crazy off the wall situation like that, if your team goes in and does exactly what G2 does in a round, like taking from a certain
You're
area.
going to
Yeah,
win.
if you take from a certain area, hold certain lines of sight just like they do, push in a certain way, smoke a certain way, and then plant that same way, you're most likely going to win.
And drone the same way,
Right,
right?
yeah,
Which it's hard to catch those things when you're watching the pro league because it's so
correct.
fast.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing to realize. Like, for instance, I think we were talking about this before on a previous episode, but being able to rappel on the billiards window on coastline is just something I've seen pro teams get away with, which it seems absurd because they could just go to the sunrise.
There are so
Yeah,
many
there's like
ways
the
to die to
sunrise
that.
window. There's the office door run out. There's just so many ways to die from that, and you
Hookah
think to
balcony.
yourself like, oh, don't do that because like that only works in the pro league. Don't do that in ranked. Like I assume that's what this guy would say. Like just don't do it because you'll die because you're not pro league. But like if you do what the pros do and the whole team coordinates around it, then you win because it works.
Yeah, the reason they do that is because they've droned out. They know where all the defenders are, or pretty reasonably well where the defenders are, and they know that they're safe. And that's the behavior that you should be taking from the pro. When I watch the pro league, I identify players that play the operators that I tend to play. I'm a support main, so I play like Thermite, Hibana, Capitao, Thatcher on attack, and like Maestro, Mira, Echo. Well, not Echo because I'm a terrible Echo, but Maestro, Mira, like Legion on defense. And I pick and choose things that they do, like camera placements, very important. Which rotates do they make? Which lines of sight do they tend to hold? It's not about copying verbatim what a player does in terms of like entering or gunfights. It's picking out the strategies. It's the bigger picture of what's going on and not the minutia of what they're doing. Like, oh, I'm going to hold this angle and fire 6 bullets and pre-fire this. It's not that. It's you're trying to pick up the strategy behind what they're doing. Like who's droning and where and for how long,
Yeah, and
stuff like that.
so here's one example of a particular strategy that is done in pro league almost ubiquitously nowadays. That is really difficult to wrap your head around, and I've been trying to teach it to the guys that I coach, and it's like we've just kind of dropped bank anyway now, so it's kind of irrelevant. But the defense of tellers opening up the wall that faces the main stairs. That's not meta in ranked at all at any rank.
No.
Like even like high platinum, I've never seen anybody in ranked ever do that.
No.
But every single pro league team does. And if you're going to copy what the pro league does, this is the real takeaway. If you're going to copy what the pro league does, you should know why. And you should be able to determine why they're doing what they're doing so that you know where to position yourselves. So that you know
And which operators.
right.
Because the operator choice on that particular defense that you're talking about is very, very important.
Yes. Because it's almost impossible to play a turtle strat on that particular site because they're just going to get in up above and then just buck everything open, sledge everything open, nade it, shoot the bandit off the walls, and then they're just going to open it and plant. So for stuff like that, I get it. Like that's kind of the line where I start to think that this particular author of this post has a decent argument, but it's not because he's right. It's because generally, if people would copy that particular strat, if they would just open up that teller's wall facing main stairs, a lot of lower level players wouldn't understand why. And
They would
then
think you're
yeah, and
insane.
then they would play the site the exact same way that they always had, just with that wall open, which isn't the point.
Which you can't do.
Right. So it's not just doing what the pros do. It's not just, especially on defense, I think, because like on defense you have to structure the map in a certain way. You have to open up walls, open up hatches and
Yeah.
floors, whatever. So in particular on defense, there's a lot of things that you need to do in order to have the best chances of winning. But if you're a lower level player and you don't understand why you're doing it, then it's not going to help you. And if you don't understand why you're doing it, either ask someone better than you who does know why, or don't do it. So like do the next best strategy that you do understand the meaning or the reason why you're doing it. But on attack, like these examples just don't really cut the mustard for me. Like these are all just examples of being bad at droning or being bad at coordinating with your team.
Yeah, well, the criticism of the pro, I don't even first of all, I don't even understand what he means by I I entry fragged like a pro, because he didn't.
Yeah.
Right? He droned himself into a room. Did he entry frag? Sure, he tried, but like entry fragging like a pro is not quickly droning yourself into a room, jumping in and dying. That's just not how it works. Like if you're solo queuing, then you need to ask somebody to drone for you. Be like, hey, can you drone me in? You know, that's a coordination thing, and that's what that's the aspect of the pro player that you should be emulating, is the teamwork and the coordination and the communication, and not necessarily the specifics of what they're doing. Like, oh, this pro likes to enter this exact room this exact way. You know, that's not what you should be doing.
Yeah, and
When you watch the pro league, it's, you know, first of all, it's hard to figure out what's going on because there's one spectator, there's 10 players, it's flicking back and forth between gunfights, and you don't really get a good
and
sense
the game
of
is
like
not friendly
what the defensive setup is.
to spectators. It's not a very spectator friendly sport.
It isn't. But like when I watch, like okay, so my example of this, it's still on bank, but it's the CEO strat, right? Which is again a very specific strat, and people typically, like, CEO was a terrible hold for a long time.
Yeah.
And it was probably the least played site on the entire map. And then the pros figured out that, oh, with a Mira and a castle, we can actually hold this pretty well. You know, it still has some holes, but it's not a bad setup. So I, after watching many matches on bank, I just memorized the strat, so I know it, and I can regurgitate it at will and say, okay, you guys need to do this. I need these walls reinforced. I need these walls opened up. I need this castle, that castle, etc. And so I straight up ripped off this strat from Pro League, and it wins every time. I mean, I can think of, I think we lost it. We played it probably half a dozen, you know, maybe 6-8 times. And I think we've lost it once. I personally have lost it one time.
Yeah, and it's really,
because it's a great strat.
Yeah, and it's really not that difficult to understand. Like you don't have to wrap your head
No.
around anything too big brain.
No, there's a specific mirror spot. The whole point is that you use the mirrors to hold, that you let them breach the site. They can breach the site. That's fine. From Skylight, which is the common push. And then you hold it from the janitor wall. Whatever. I don't have to go into the details, but the point is that I didn't rip off one single individual's play, right? I ripped off the entire strategy, and then I communicate with my team with operator picks, with gadget placements, with which walls need to be reinforced, which walls need to be opened, with shotguns, and then communicate with who needs to play where. And then it just wins. Like, we were playing, the last time I played that strat, we actually played a team that was really pretty good in ranked. You know, we're all like mid-plat, and they were all mid-high plat. I think they had a diamond. No, they had a diamond on their team. And it was tied 3-3 into overtime. And then we did our CEO strat, And first of all, it was the strat that took us into overtime where it was 2-3 and we won that strat and made it 3-3.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went back to that site for the first round of overtime and it won again and it put us ahead. And then we won our next attack of the basement and then we won the game. And it was, you know, our understanding of how that strategy works and their lack of understanding of how that strategy works that won us that game, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you played like a pro player in doing that.
I played exactly like a pro player, except for the fact that I peaked a dumb angle and died, I think. Which actually the pros do that too a lot of times.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
But that's the point, is that if you're gonna pull something from the pro league, you have to pull all of it. You can't just pick and choose specific aspects of players' behavior and copy them.
Yeah, it's not an individual game.
Unless it's like a gadget placement. It's really not. It's a team game.
And that extrapolates to
so
Pro League, and I think that's just what this guy misses. Like, I mean, he did, although he doesn't miss it because he says all these things. He's like, they drone for each other. Like,
he contradicts himself.
Look at this ridiculous concept. They drone for each other. You could never do that. Like, he doesn't go into the idea that like you could do that yourself. Like, you could have a teammate.
Except we played a Go 4 a couple of days ago and did exactly that the whole game.
It's just, it's a matter of... And I get that if you're playing solo queue, all of this stuff is going to be more difficult to pull off. But in solo queue, you do what pros do, but you don't do it so rigidly. Like, sometimes you just have to...
Don't solo queue.
First, don't solo queue. But if you have to, like, use your teammates as bait and just use them as live drones and stick with them, like keep pace with them, but still
just communicate.
Yeah, and use your words. And if you're not getting any words back, then I'm sorry, but you're not playing. You're not playing Rainbow Six Siege if you're not communicating.
I mean, even if like you're getting nothing but dead silence from your teammates, just keep talking. Not only is it good practice for you, but they're actually, most of them are listening, even if they're not responding, or even if like English is not their first language. Or whatever, like most people can understand some English without being able to speak it.
Yeah, actually, even so, I'm on West Coast, and if it's late at night, I'll be playing with a lot of East Asian players, and a lot of them don't know English at all, but they do know the names of the rooms. So if I just say office, like, people are gonna know what I'm talking about anyway. It doesn't matter. Like, even if they're not talking back, they know what I mean. So. Mm-hmm.
Just communicate. I mean, and you know, you have a call out series ongoing.
I do. Thank you for the plug.
So, shameless. We're shameless self-promoters here. But yeah, so your YouTube channel, you have a call out series where you go through the maps, and you already have, so tying back into the newcomer playlist, you already have videos out for Bank and Consulate. Mm-hmm. For all the call outs, common and slightly less common.
I go over the names of the rooms that are on the compass, but then I explain that half the time the word that you see down there by the compass is not what people call the room. So I'll go over all the words that you will probably actually hear, and then which one you should be using in order to like get your point across to the greatest number of people.
And that's Banana Splat, right? That's your
Correct,
YouTube channel?
Banana Splat. It will be in the description, in the show notes.
And I presently plan on putting out an introductory series to, you know, Siege, some of the gameplay mechanics, and then I plan on doing an attack and defense guide on all 3 of the newcomer maps, and you know, maybe more if there's demand for that. But I at least want to get it out on the newcomer maps because. I think really the only good attack and defense guides that I've seen were from King George, and they're all really old. Like the videos that he put out are great, but he's an ex-pro, and his take on the game is from that pro sort of standpoint.
Are you trying to say he's playing too much like a pro, and that he should stop playing like a pro?
He really should. He should stop playing like a pro. It's just, you can't get away with it overestimating your opponents, man. Which is just so dumb. Overestimating your opponents is never a bad thing to do. You should be assuming that your opponents are the best players in the world and playing like it until they prove you otherwise, in my opinion. But what that means is that you should be droning carefully, watching for runouts, watching for spawn peaks, assuming that they're going to try to out aim you until you realize that they won't or can't.
Yeah, and here's the other big part of that is that playing like a pro player, or actually overestimating your opponent, doesn't mean that they, like, a good opponent isn't going to be predictable. And I think that's kind of the point this guy was trying to make, that like a good player is going to do more predictable things because they're always going to do the best option, which is like, I get why he thinks that, but good players don't play predictably.
Yeah, well,
Like he's making it sound like bad players are the only people who are unpredictable, and therefore you shouldn't expect people to do the right thing. You should expect bad players to do unpredictable things.
I think that there is a bit of a dichotomy there between the type of unpredictability of a good player and the unpredictability of a bad player. Mm-hmm. Like an unpredictable good player still has reason to do what he's doing.
Yes.
Or she, or they. But a bad, unpredictable player is doing stuff for no reason.
Yeah,
which is sort of the difference.
A bad player will do something that's unpredictable unless you drone it. If you just use your drone, an unpredictable bad player will lose every time. Because their positioning will be poor. They will pinch themselves into corners. And then you just drone them and kill them.
Which that goes back to that theme park game where we killed that cav, right? Were you there for that?
I might have been. What was the situation?
So they were defending, like bunk daycare, like normal, but a cav. We caught a cav run across train into the initiation side on drone, and we were like, okay, easy kill. So, Yeezy and I drone pushed this cav and roam cleared her with drones, and then I wall banged her because she got spotted, and this guy was furious. This person was like,
I remember this.
How did you know I was there? Why did you wall bang me? Like, not necessarily haccusating, but accusing.
Accusation.
I'm not.
You accusationed her, or he accusationed you.
Whatever. He wasn't quite accusing me of hacking, but he was like, how did you wall bang me? How'd you know I was there? I was like, dude, we saw you on drone and hunted you like a team because that's the game. Like, that's how you play the game. And he was so upset. Just so
why did you ruin his fun? He was having fun roaming with Caveira. He was going to get an interrogation if it weren't for you meddling kids.
I don't care. Caveira is so easy to deal with if you're just a coordinated team.
Yeah.
And that's the point. Is that's how you learn from the pros. And we learned that from watching the Pro League. It's like, hey, how do the Pro League players roam clear? Mm-hmm. Well, they have 2 or 3 people on drone, and they have 2 or 3 people, depending on who's droning or not, like, pinch and clear the roamers. It's not really that hard. And that's exactly what we did.
Yeah, and that exact example is a great example because a bad predictable player will do things like just, I assume it was initiation where you killed him?
Yeah.
So a bad predictable player will just go into initiation with no way out. Like, the only way out of the initiation is through the hatch, which, like, that takes some time. You got to pop it, and then by the time you hear them pop it, you know exactly where they're going. But like, a bad unpredictable player will do something unpredictable, like just going into initiation and sitting there waiting to, like, do her flank later on. But
just lurking.
But the magic of droning will let you just go kill her for free. So play like a pro player, drone like a pro player, communicate like a pro player. That's what you should be doing. You shouldn't be not trying to play like a pro player. You should just understand why you're doing what you're doing. That's the real takeaway. You should understand why you're doing what you're doing.
Basically, everything that you do should have a reason. You should be able to justify it if somebody asks you why you're doing what you're doing. You should have a readily available reason. to back up what you're doing. Because if you don't, if think about anything that you do in the game. If somebody asks you why and you have no answer, then just don't do that thing.
Couldn't have said it better myself. But I think that's all we got for today.
Yeah, that about wraps it up.
So I feel like that was pretty cathartic. I like tearing into bad opinions.
There are a lot of them out there.
But yeah, so we will we'll be getting more of those videos up pretty soon, I think. Both Poet and I want to get more videos out there. We'll put both of our YouTube links in the description. So go check those out. If especially if you're a newer player, the video guides that I put out are more directed toward kind of like just getting acquainted with the callouts that you'll actually hear in the game. So I think they're pretty good. They're a little wordy and in depth, but I don't go into any more. I don't get any more wordy than I think is needed. So go check them out. They're good.
They are. And my video series will be coming out shortly.
And his video series will also be really good. It's gonna be fucking great. So go check it out. That is but that's all we got for today. I am Bino. This is my co-host.
And I am Poet. Hello.
Goodbye.